Hello everyone, welcome to the Stock Trading Tutor channel. In this video, we'll be covering DHFL and Reliance Capital's box system method which they have used to avoid disclosure of all the debts they have accrued over the years. Now we'll go into this in detail. Now, before we go into the topic, I'd like to remind you that if you would like to create a Demat account with Alice Blue, click the link in the description and fill out your details. You'll also get intraday recommendation calls and you can learn robo trading software for free. Now, let's go into the topic. So, the recently released report by the Risk Event Driven and Distressed Intelligence, that is also known as REDD, it throws some light on the shenanigans of a few very large NBFCs which have been up to, specifically the Anil Ambani Group and the Dewan Housing and Finance Corporation Limited. NBFCs and housing finance companies together constitute 19.2% of the total credit extended by the Indian financial system. So typically, the NBFC sector services borrowers deemed too risky for commercial banks. However, there is an inherent flaw in the system. The NBFC sector gets majority of its funding from commercial banks and mutual funds. So something that was not doable directly by the banks, the same is being done through NBFCs as a vehicle. To add to inherent instability, what is of greater concern is the malpractices as highlighted in the case of DHFL, wherein the company was accused of being a vehicle to divert funds. The company used a new structure called as box companies, according to REDD, to evade reporting of funds given to related entities. Using the box system, these companies have found an alternative way to roll over or evergreening of loans. So as we can see, these are the amount of total debt that the companies have. Debentures is 6,681 billion rupees. Bank borrowings is 4,108 billion. Borrowing from foreign institutions foreign investors is 277 billion, intercorporate borrowings 701 billion, commercial papers 1525 billion, borrowings from government is 1 billion, subordinated debts 361 billion, other borrowings are 2062 billion. So the total borrowings comes down to 15,716 billion. So let's look at what the borrow box system is first and how this entire catastrophe happened and how the debt was hidden and wasn't disclosed to the public. So let's say there's an example called X, and this X owns an NBFC called XYZ. So this X owns the NBFCs also, and it wants to source funds through this from banks. So there'll be banks, and they'll borrow NBFCs will borrow money from the banks, and then they'll give it to Mr. X. However, if they do it directly, they'll have to disclose it as related party transaction, and this will disclose the funds which are being transferred. However, the box system will come in. So the X will be promoter of three companies, let's say A, B, and C, with a capital of 1 crore rupees each. So company A, B, and C will have 1 crore in their capital and 1 crore in cash each and are owned by X. So these are related party for the NBFC XYZ. So now the company A will buy 50% of the company B and 50% of the company C from X. So in the end result, all the three companies A, B, and C are now owned by each other, and X will not have any ownership of any of these companies and will receive back his initial 3 crore investment. So a will own 50% of B and C, B will own 50% of A, 50% of C, and C will own 50% of A and 50% of B. So these will all inter-own each other, and the first 3 crore investment will go back to Mr. X. So that's the state. Now, after this comes the next step in which now A, B, and C will approach this NBFC for loan. So this NBFC XYZ will not have to report these loans as related party transactions, as none of these companies will be owned by X because of owning each other. They won't be related to Mr. X, although Mr. X will in reality be the beneficiary of this money. So this way, X will have extracted money from the NBFC and without having the NBFC report it. So the next time when the loans fall due, another box of companies will be created to fund the company's A, B, and C's loan prepayment, thus effectively rolling over the loans and defaulting on them, or just making it evergreen. So, technique. As you can see, this is the entire box system. The entire system will be owned by Mr. X. And this NBFC XYZ will be used as a vehicle for owning money, for borrowing from the banks and mutual funds, and so on. So let's look at the DHFL's example. So, according to the case of DHFL, on which a report by Cobra Post highlighted how the company using the box system avoided reporting to the exchanges on the sale of 9.97% stake in the company. The companies forming the box in this case were Hemisphere, Galaxy, and Silicon. The three box companies owned 31.1 million shares in DHFL as of March 2018. All through the year, they sold the stock, disposing 4 million shares by the end of June and by September. Their holdings had come down by 7.65 million shares and did not appear in the register by March 2019. So, this entire transaction happened and it didn't appear in the register by March 2019. So as we can see, the demand shareholders box system. So here is DHFL, and it owned in box companies Hemisphere, Galaxy, and Silicon. And using these three companies, it borrowed money from NBFCs, resulting in the huge amount of debt that was defaulted by DHFL overall. Now let's look at Reliance Capitals. So REDD points out that Reliance Capital and its two affiliates, Reliance Home Finance and Reliance Commercial Finance, have engaged in similar kind of funding through box companies. The report indicates that the amount of loan outstanding to these box companies totals around 137 billion rupees. REDD also provides the details of the three box structures of Reliance ADAG Group. So let's look at these box structures of Reliance. So the first box is for Reliance Home Finance and or Reliance Commercial Finance. So as we can see, this is a bit more complicated box system. So they all own shares in each other, as we can see by these arrows which are interconnecting. So there's Reliance Land, Reliance Venture, Reliance Alpha, Reliance Financial Advisory, Indian Agriculture, and Aadhaar projects. There were also companies like Ganesha Investments, Mohanbir High Tech, Aadhaar Real Estate, and Aadhaar Property Consultancy. So overall, there's been 8,014 million loan through Aadhaar projects, then 12,080 million to Indian Agriculture, which was eventually passed off to other companies. Whoa, that's a lot of debt. Now, let's look at this in detail, as this image is not very clear and can be very confusing. Let's look at it in this cross ownership, the box. So as we can see here, Aadhaar projects owned 4.9% in Reliance Land, 19% in Reliance Venture Assets, 5% in Reliance Alpha, 18% in Reliance Financial Advisory Services, and 19% in Indian Agriculture. As you can see, slowly Reliance Land, Reliance Venture Assets, Reliance Alpha, so they owned ranging from 4.9% to 19%. They owned each companies intertwined within each other, causing the box for Reliance. This is the first box. There are few more which were used for creating the hole of for hiding the debt money. So next is the second one for Reliance Home Finance. So Reliance, RPL, Solar Power, Surya Power, and Sunshine Power own 50% of each other to form a box. They received a total loan of 3.49 billion, which equals to 50 million US dollars from Reliance Home. So Reliance Home was the NBFC which was used to borrow money from proper banks. Next is the third box for Reliance. So the three box companies are Space Trade Enterprises, Species, Commerce and Trade, and Skyline Group Trade. Space Trade, Species, Commerce, and Skyline Global own close to 50% of each other, and they have a total of 11.5 billion rupees, which equals to 166 million US dollars in loans from Reliance Home and Reliance Commercial NBFCs. So as we can see, these were the box companies which of Reliance, which was used to hide the entire debt and to keep from uh, disclosing it to the public. Whew, this is too much. Thank you for watching this video. For more videos on stock market and trading, please subscribe to this channel. If you'd like to create a free Demat account with Alice Blue, click the link in the description and fill out your details. You'll also get intraday recommendation calls and you can learn robot trading software for free.